My ex-fiancée texted I met someone else and ran off with my money a week before our wedding. So I married the woman she despised and shut her out forever. Before I dive into this train wreck, let me give you some background. I grew up in a small town outside Denver, regular middle-class family with parents who worked their asses off so I could have a normal childhood. Dad was a mechanical engineer at some manufacturing plant. Mom taught third grade at the local elementary school. I've got an older sister who's married with 2 children now, living in Chicago. We're not super close but get along fine when we see each other at holidays. In high school, I was pretty average. Played football but wasn't starting lineup material. Decent grades but no scholarships. Had a small group of close friends, most of whom I've lost touch with over the years. Wasn't exactly fighting off the ladies, if you know what I mean. I had my first real girlfriend junior year. Lasted about 8 months before she dumped me for a guy who had his own car. Classic. After high school, I went to Colorado State for computer science. College was where I finally found my groove a bit. Made some solid friends. Figured out I was actually pretty good at coding. Still wasn't exactly a ladies' man, but I had a couple relationships that lasted a few months each. Graduated with a decent grade point average and got my first job at a small tech company in Denver. I'm not the type who usually gets the hot girl. Average height, 5 feet 10 inches. I started losing my hair at 25. Thanks, Dad. Decent shape, but nothing special. I'm just a normal dude who likes watching sports, playing video games, and hanging with my friends. I drive a 2017 Subaru that I'm still paying off. I have a crippling addiction to spicy food and those videos where people power wash dirty driveways. Thrilling stuff, I know. By 27, I had settled into adult life, had my own apartment. Nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom near work. I was slowly climbing the corporate ladder at a network security firm and had finally paid off my student loans. Dating scene was hit or miss, mostly a lot of first dates from apps that went nowhere. Then I met Jessica, let's call her Jess, at a tech conference in Vegas. My company had sent me to man our booth, which was about as exciting as watching paint dry. She was 25, working for a marketing company that had a booth across from ours. Guys, this woman was way out of my league. Long blonde hair, green eyes, the kind of smile that makes you forget what you were saying mid-sentence. She wore these pencil skirts and blouses that were professional, but still showed off her figure. She was the girl who would have never looked at me twice in college. Somehow, we hit it off. During the slow periods at the conference, we'd chat across the aisle. She laughed at my dumb jokes, seemed genuinely interested in my boring-ass job and network security. At the vendor happy hour on the second night, we ended up talking for hours. She gave me her number before leaving and I was walking on air the rest of the conference. I couldn't believe my luck. My buddies kept asking what the catch was. My best friend Dave literally said, "Dude, she's like an 805 and you're a solid 6 on your best day. What's her angle?" But I was too blinded by those green eyes to see any red flags. The thing with Jess is she knew exactly how hot she was and used it like a superpower. At restaurants, she'd get us better tables with just a smile. Flight attendants would upgrade us for free. Traffic cops would let her off with a warning. And I was just happy to be the guy beside her, like I'd won some kind of lottery. What I didn't realize then was how much she fucking loved the attention. If we went somewhere and she wasn't the hottest girl in the room, her mood would tank. She'd get pissy, say she had a headache or want to leave early. She'd suddenly find something wrong with the restaurant or the movie or whatever we were doing. And the thing is, she was always on her phone. Always. At dinner, in bed, during movies, even when we were out with friends. I just figured that was normal for someone in marketing. Building her personal brand, she'd say. I later found out she was running several Instagram accounts with different aesthetics. Fitness Jess, professional Jess, foodie Jess. All carefully curated versions of herself. The first red flag I should have paid attention to was how she treated service workers. Sweet as sugar, until something wasn't perfect. Then suddenly she'd transform into this entitled nightmare. I remember a waitress spilling water on our table, not even on Jess, and Jess demanded to speak to the manager, got the poor girl in trouble, all while I sat there uncomfortably. But the sex was incredible. She was gorgeous, and when she was in a good mood, she made me feel like the most important guy in the world. Classic manipulation, I know now, but back then, I was hooked. We dated long distance for 6 months. Me in Denver, her in Phoenix. I'd fly to see her twice a month. She'd come to Denver once a month. The distance was hard, but we made it work. Then her company opened a Denver office and asked if she wanted to transfer. She called me excited about the possibility, and I was over the moon. Within 2 months, she'd moved to Denver and into my apartment. Living together was an adjustment. Suddenly, my bachelor pad had throw pillows and framed motivational quotes and plants everywhere. My game room gradually transformed into her home office/Instagram studio. But I was so happy to have her there that I didn't care. After a year of living together, I started noticing more red flags. She'd get irrationally jealous if I so much as mentioned a female coworker. She'd surprise me at my office for lunch, which I later realized was her checking up on me. She'd go through my phone while I was sleeping. I caught her once and she said she was just setting my alarm for me. Right. We dated for 4 years total, got engaged after 2. I proposed at this fancy restaurant that cost me a month's salary for the meal. Looking back, she probably expected something grander. She'd been dropping hints about proposal videos going viral, but she said yes anyway. I bought her the ring she'd been tagging me in on Instagram for months. 2.5 carats, put me back $15,000 that I had to take a loan out for. Then the wedding planning started, and I just handed over my credit card. A $30,000 venue, a $5,000 dress, $10,000 for food and booze. I was going into debt for this wedding, but I figured it was worth it. This was going to be my life, right? She wanted a spring wedding at this vineyard outside Boulder. 200 guests, half of whom I barely knew. Custom everything, Instagram-worthy details. My parents were concerned about the cost. Tried to gently suggest we scale back. Jess cried for 2 days, accused them of not accepting her into the family. I, being the spineless idiot I was, sided with Jess. It caused this rift with my parents that took years to heal. 8 months of intense wedding planning later, we were a week away from the big day. Everything was paid for. Non-refundable deposits everywhere. My college buddies were flying in for the bachelor party that weekend. Her bridesmaids had just had their final dress fittings. We'd just done our tasting at the venue and finalized the menu. I was stressed about the money, but excited to finally be done with wedding planning and just be married. Jess seemed distracted, but I figured she was just dealing with last-minute wedding details. She'd been spending a lot of time with her wedding planning team, which included my friend Mark from college who had moved to Denver a year earlier, and who Jess had befriended. He was helping with the music playlist, which should have been another red flag. Since when did Mark care about wedding details? 1 week before the wedding, I'd just gotten off a conference call with a client. I check my phone and see a message from Jess Ryan. I can't go through with the wedding. I've met someone else. I'm so sorry. I hope someday you'll understand this is for the best. That's it. 4 years together, $50,000 spent on a wedding, and she ends it in a fucking text that took her 10 seconds to write. I called her immediately, straight to voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. Texted her, called her mom. Nothing. I drove to her apartment in a complete daze, running a red light and nearly T-boning someone. She wasn't there. Half her clothes were gone. Her makeup vanished from the bathroom counter. It was like she just evaporated from my life. I sat on our bed, the bed we'd picked out together at IKEA, and argued about how to assemble, and just stared at the wall for hours. My phone kept buzzing with wedding shit, the caterer confirming final numbers, my cousin asking what time he should pick up his rental tux, my mom asking if Jess had decided on the centerpieces. I couldn't answer any of them. Couldn't form words, couldn't process what the fuck had just happened. Eventually I called Dave, my best friend since college. He came over immediately, found me still sitting on the bed, staring at my phone. Dude, what happened? You look like someone died. I just handed him my phone with the text still open. He read it, then read it again, his face going from confusion to shock to anger. What the actual fuck, he said. She sent you a text. Is she fucking serious? That's when I broke down, not cute movie crying, but full-on ugly sobbing in front of my best friend. Dave just sat next to me, hand on my shoulder, letting me get it out. What do I do? I finally asked him. The wedding's next Saturday. Everyone's flying in. We've paid for everything. First, we call everyone and tell them it's off, Dave said. I'll help you. Then we figure out what the hell happened. The next 20 to 4 hours were a blur of phone calls. Dave took my phone and called all the vendors to cancel. I called my family to tell them the wedding was off. My mom cried. My dad got quiet in that dangerous way he does when he's truly furious. My sister immediately said she was coming to stay with me despite having 2 children under 5 years old to take care of. The worst calls were to my friends who were already en route to Denver. My college roommate Mike was at a layover in Chicago when I reached him. Seriously, she just bailed? What the fuck, man? My cousin Alex had already landed and rented a car. He came straight to my apartment from the airport, still carrying his luggage. By that evening, I had 4 of my closest friends camped out in my apartment, all of them in shock. All of them furious on my behalf. None of us knew where Jess had gone or who this someone else was. 2 days later, I found out who the someone else was. Mark, my fucking friend from college, the the guy who'd been my roommate for 2 years, the same dude who'd been the first person I told when I was going to propose to Jess, the guy who'd agreed to be one of my groomsmen. I found out because Dave saw them together at the airport, luggage in hand, making out by the international departures terminal. Dave sent me a picture, probably thinking I should know. They were going to fucking Bali, the honeymoon destination Jess and I had been saving for. You know what's worse? I checked our joint account, emptied. $15,000 we'd saved together for the honeymoon, gone. She'd taken it all 3 days before sending that text. That's when the whole truth hit me, all those wedding planning sessions with Mark. All those times she was out with her bridesmaids but came home late. The sudden password on her phone. The way she'd get defensive if I asked about her day. It had been going on for months right under my nose. I went through our photo albums, social media, everything, and there were signs everywhere. Mark in the background of photos, Jess tagging him in Instagram comments with inside jokes I didn't understand, him showing up at places we were hanging out, supposedly by coincidence. She'd been playing me for a fool, and I'd been too trusting to see it. That night, I lost it, started throwing her stuff that she'd left behind into trash bags, deleted every photo of us from my phone, blocked her on all social media, changed the Netflix password. Petty shit, but it felt good in the moment. Then I had to make more calls. Had to tell the rest of our 200 guests the wedding was off. Had to hear the pity in their voices. Had to explain over and over again that I had no idea, that I was just as blindsided as they were. Jess's parents called me confused as hell. Apparently, she'd told them I had cheated on her, that I was the one who called off the wedding. She'd played the victim to her entire family. Her dad actually threatened me on the phone until I forwarded him the text she'd sent and Dave's airport photo. Then he just got quiet, apologized, and hung up. I never heard from them again. The vendors were less understanding. Non-refundable meant exactly that. The venue kept the entire $30,000. The caterer refunded 10%, the florist nothing. The photographer, who was actually a decent human, gave back half of his fee. My credit cards were maxed out for a wedding that would never happen. The next day, I got an email from Jess. No apology, just asking if I could ship some sentimental items she'd forgotten to her parents' house, like we just had some minor disagreement, like she hadn't just nuclear bombed my entire life. I didn't respond. Mark sent me a text a few days later. I know you're upset, but when you calm down, I hope you'll understand that you can't choose who you love. I threw my phone across the room so hard it shattered. The next 6 months were the darkest of my life. I lost 30 pounds because I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work. My performance tanked so bad my boss put me on a performance improvement plan, which is corporate speak for get your shit together or get fired. I couldn't sleep in our bed anymore, so I slept on the couch. Couldn't afford to break the lease, so I was stuck in an apartment full of memories. Couldn't even escape on social media because Jess and Mark were posting their adventures all over Instagram, Bali, then Thailand, then Australia, using my fucking money to fund their new life. My friends tried to help. Dave and Alex practically moved in with me for the first month, making sure I ate, making me shower, forcing me to leave the apartment. My sister came with her children for a week, filling the place with noise and life and distractions. But once everyone went back to their lives, I was alone with my thoughts, and they were dark. I kept replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for signs I'd missed, wondering what was real and what was fake, wondering if she'd ever actually loved me at all. The worst part wasn't losing Jess, it was losing my confidence, my trust in people. I started seeing therapists who all said the same thing. This isn't about you, it's about her. But when someone discards you like yesterday's trash, it's impossible not to take it personally. I kept going to work, but I was just going through the motions. My boss eventually called me into his office and said, "Look, Ryan, everyone knows what happened. Take some time off. Get your head straight." So, I took a 3-week leave of absence. Went to stay with my parents in my childhood bedroom. My mom cooked all my favorite meals. My dad didn't ask questions, just included me in his projects around the house. Physical labor, fixing the deck, painting the garage. It helped. Kept my hands busy, my mind occupied. When I came back to Denver, I decided it was time to reclaim my life. I got a new phone with a new number, created new social media accounts, changed the locks on the apartment, threw out anything that reminded me of Jess, repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture. Around month 7, Dave convinced me to try dating again, set up a profile for me on some apps. I went on a few dates, all disasters. I was so paranoid about being hurt again that I'd find flaws in every woman before she could find flaws in me. After the 4th date, where I basically sabotaged any chance of connection, I deleted the apps. I wasn't ready. What I was ready for was a change of scenery. I started looking for a new job, preferably one that would take me out of Denver. Applied to companies in Seattle, Austin, Chicago, anywhere but here. I got an offer from a tech firm in Boulder. Not as far as I'd hoped, but a significant pay bump and a completely different role. More responsibility, more challenge. Exactly what I needed to focus my energy on something productive. I took the job, found a new apartment, and started fresh. New city, well, new-ish, new job, new apartment, new me. About a year after the Jess disaster, I was finally in a better place. The new job was challenging but rewarding. I'd made a few work friends. I'd picked up rock climbing as a hobby, something I'd always wanted to try, but Jess had no interest in. Started eating better, going to the gym regularly. Was finally sleeping through the night most of the time. It was at the climbing gym that I met Alexis. She was 32, a physical therapist, divorced with no children. Not the conventional beauty that Jess was. She had wild curly hair, wore no makeup, and dressed for comfort, not style. But she had these dark brown eyes that looked right through your shit and this laugh that made everyone around her smile. Our first conversation was her telling me my climbing technique was an injury waiting to happen. Not exactly a smooth pickup line, but she was right. She offered to show me the proper form, and somehow that turned into coffee, which turned into dinner the following week. I was beyond cautious. Told her on our third date about the Jess disaster. Figured she'd run for the hills. Instead, she shared her own divorce story. Her ex-husband had been a functioning addict who'd hidden his demons until after they were married. They'd been divorced for 3 years. Everybody's got scars, Ryan, she told me. The question is whether you let them define you. We took things slow, like glacially slow. Didn't even kiss until our 6th date. Didn't meet each other's friends for 3 months. But there was something so calming about being with Alexis. No drama, no games, no checking her phone every 5 minutes. She was just present, real. She had her own apartment, her own friends, her own life. She didn't try to merge our identities into one amorphous couple blob the way Jess had. She didn't post about our relationship on social media. She didn't need constant validation about how we looked together. What she did need was honesty, respect, and communication. The first time we had a disagreement about something trivial, I don't even remember what. I braced for the silent treatment, the manipulation tactics I'd grown accustomed to with Jess. Instead, Alexis just said, "I disagree with you, and here's why." And we talked it out like actual adults. It took me months to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop, to stop expecting her to suddenly reveal some hidden agenda, to stop looking for the catch, because with Jess, there had always been a catch. After a year, I finally felt secure enough to suggest moving in together. We found a small house to rent. Not fancy, but it had a yard for her dog and was close to both our workplaces. Moving in with Alexis was nothing like moving in with Jess. There was no power struggle over decorating, no endless selfies documenting the process, no arguments about whose stuff was more important. 6 months after that, I knew she was the one. Not in the desperate, clingy way I'd felt with Jess, but in a calm, certain way, like I'd finally found my home. I proposed on a mountain summit after a grueling hike that almost killed my out-of-shape ass. No fancy restaurant, no audience, just us and the view. She said yes, and I didn't even care that her fingers were too swollen from the hike to try on the ring. A simple, modest ring that she'd mentioned liking, not some flashy status symbol. We got married at the courthouse 6 months later, just our immediate families and closest friends. No $5,000 dress or fancy venue. She wore a simple white sundress she already owned. We spent our honeymoon money on a down payment for a small house instead. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again, like the Jess chapter was finally closed. Or so I thought. 3 years into my marriage with Alexis, guess who rolls back into town? I was in our front yard one Saturday mowing the lawn when a white Range Rover pulls up. Boulder has grown so much that I figured it was just someone lost looking for directions. Then she steps out. Jess. She looked expensive. That's the only word for it. Designer everything. Fresh from the salon hair. That carefully calculated casual look that actually cost thousands. But her eyes had this hardness I'd never seen before. "Ryan," she said, "like we just seen each other yesterday. You look good." I turned off the mower. "What are you doing here, Jess?" She gave me that smile, the one that used to make my heart race. Now it just made my stomach turn. "I've been thinking about you, about us." I made a huge mistake. I actually laughed. "You've been thinking about us? There hasn't been an us for 4 years. Mark and I split up," she said, her voice dropping to that vulnerable tone she used when she wanted something. "He wasn't who I thought he was. It was all a mistake, Ryan. We were good together, you and me. Are you fucking serious right now?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You emptied our accounts, ran off with my friend, ghosted me a week before our wedding, and now what? You want to pick up where we left off? She stepped closer. I could smell her perfume, the same one she used to wear. I know you're angry, you have every right to be, but we had something real. You can't tell me you don't still think about me. I'm married, Jess, happily married. She glanced at the house, her face twisting into something ugly for just a second before the mask slipped back on. To who? Anyone I know. Just then, Alexis opened the front door. Ryan, who's this? She was holding a mug of coffee, wearing my old college t-shirt and running shorts, hair piled messily on top of her head. Jess looked her up and down, this dismissive little smirk forming on her lips. Oh, hi, I'm Jessica. Ryan and I were engaged. The way she said it, like Alexis was some temporary placeholder in her spot, made my blood boil. Alexis walked over calmly, put her arm around my waist. I know exactly who you are, she said, her voice level. And I'm wondering why you're at our home. Jess ignored her completely, focused on me. Can we talk privately just for a few minutes? No, I said. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of my wife. Wife? Jess repeated with this little scoff. Come on, Ryan, this isn't you, some little house in the suburbs with her. She gestured at Alexis like she was some kind of downgrade. You were going to marry me. We had plans, a life together. Plans you destroyed, I said. Now please leave. You're not welcome here. Her face changed. Then the mask dropped completely. You can't be serious. You're choosing her over me. Look at her, Ryan. Then look at me. You know damn well which one of us you really want. Alexis stepped forward then. He already chose 4 years ago when you showed your true colors. Now get off our property before I call the police. Jess looked like she'd been slapped. You don't know what we had together. Tell her, Ryan. Tell her how good we were together. I just shook my head. We're done here, Jess. Don't come back. As we turned to walk inside, Jess called after us. This isn't over, Ryan. You'll realize what a mistake you're making. She'll never make you happy like I could. We went inside and locked the door. But I had this sinking feeling in my gut. Jess never took rejection well, and she never ever gave up when she wanted something. I was right to be worried. Over the next 2 weeks, Jess launched a full-scale campaign to get me back. First came the texts, dozens of them from different numbers when I'd block one. Then emails. Then she somehow got Alexis's work number and started calling the clinic where she worked. Some of the texts were pleading, please just talk to me, Ryan. I know we can work this out. Some were manipulative. Remember how good we were together. No one knows you like I do. Some were threatening. You have no idea what you're giving up. You'll regret this. And some were downright delusional. We're meant to be together. I know you feel it too. She's just a rebound. I saved every message but didn't respond to any of them. Alexis and I agreed that engaging would only make things worse. Then Jess escalated. She showed up at my office, making a scene in the lobby. The receptionist called security when she refused to leave. She found my parents' address and sent them a long letter about how I was making a terrible mistake and asking them to help me see reason. My mom called concerned, asking what was going on. She's unstable, Mom, I told her. Just ignore anything she sends you. Jess even created a fake Instagram account to follow our friends, gathering information about our lives. She'd comment on old photos of me, claiming we were still in touch and working things out. I had to call friends individually to warn them not to engage with her. The final straw came when she approached Alexis in the grocery store parking lot, following her to her car and saying all kinds of shit about our relationship, about me, about our past together, telling Alexis I was settling for her, that I would always love Jess more. Alexis came home shaken, not because she believed any of it, but because Jess seemed unhinged. Dangerous, even. She followed me to the car. Ryan wouldn't let me close the door, kept saying you were her soulmate and that I was temporary. I think she's having some kind of breakdown. That's when I'd had enough. Time for this shit to end. I did some digging. Turned out Jess's life had completely fallen apart. Mark had left her for a younger model after blowing through all their money on failed investments. She'd lost her marketing job during a company downsizing and hadn't found stable work since. She was living with her parents at 33 years old, drowning in credit card debt, desperate to find someone to fix her problems. One of our mutual acquaintances filled me in. She's been talking about you for months, Ryan, saying you were the one who got away and that she made the biggest mistake of her life. I thought you should know she's not stable. Jess had fixated on me, the safe option she'd discarded as her way out. I had a stable job, a house, a life she could slide right into. In her warped mind, Alexis was just an obstacle to remove. So, I set a trap. I texted her from a new number, agreeing to meet her just to talk at a coffee shop. Told her I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said, that maybe she was right about Alexis and me, that I needed to see her. She took the bait instantly, responded within seconds, all enthusiasm and emojis, like she'd just won the lottery. Alexis was understandably worried. "Are you sure about this? She seems dangerous." "That's why I'm meeting her in public," I assured her, "and why I'm recording everything. We need this to stop," and clearly asking her nicely isn't working. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Jess was already there dressed to kill, that triumphant look on her face like she'd won. I sat down across from her, let her talk about how she'd always known we were meant to be together, how leaving me was her biggest regret, how we could start over. Then I pulled out my phone and hit record. "So Jess, just to be clear, you left me a week before our wedding for my friend Mark. You stole $15,000 from our joint account. You told everyone I cheated on you. And now that Mark dumped you and you're broke, you want me back?" Her face went from confused to angry in seconds. "That's not fair." "A mistake?" I repeated. "You mean like the mistake of harassing my wife at her workplace, or showing up at my parents' house yesterday?" She paled. "How did you? Or the mistake of creating fake social media accounts to stalk us, or using different phone numbers to get around being blocked, or following Alexis in the parking lot and threatening her?" "I didn't threaten her," she hissed, looking around nervously as her voice had risen. "I was just telling her the truth about us. There is no us, Jess. There hasn't been for years. I'm happily married. The only reason I'm here is to tell you to your face. If you contact me, my wife, or anyone in our families again, I'm taking this recording and all the evidence I've gathered to the police and filing for a restraining order." Her face twisted into an ugly snarl. "You wouldn't dare." I leaned in close. "Try me. I've already talked to a lawyer. I have documented evidence of harassment, stalking, and threats. You'll be ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from us at all times. Any violation, and you go to jail. Your choice." "You can't do this to me," she said, her voice cracking. "I've got nothing, Ryan. Mark took everything. I'm living with my parents. I lost my job. I need you. You should have thought about that before you threw away what we had." For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "I need help. I've got nowhere else to go." And that's when I delivered the final blow. "Actually, I have something for you." I reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope, slid it across the table. She opened it cautiously. Inside was a printed check receipt and a business card. "What's this?" "That's a donation I made in your name to a women's shelter that helps people escape toxic relationships. $15,000. Exactly the amount you stole from me." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for water. "And that's the business card of a therapist who specializes in narcissistic personality disorder. I've paid for your first 5 sessions." This wasn't entirely true. I just picked up the card from a mental health fair at work, but the look on her face was worth the little white lie. "I don't need that money anymore." "But you need help, Jess. Real help. Not another relationship to latch onto and drain dry. Get therapy, get your life together, and stay the fuck away from mine." I stood up, leaving her sitting there staring at the receipt and card. As I walked away, she called after me, her voice breaking. "Ryan, please, I'm sorry, I'll do anything." I didn't look back, just walked out of the coffee shop and didn't stop until I got to my car. My hands were shaking as I started the engine, not from fear, but from relief. I'd finally said everything I'd wanted to say for years. I'd taken back my power. I called Alexis as soon as I pulled away from the curb. "It's done," I told her. "I don't think she'll bother us again." When I got home, Alexis was waiting on the porch. She wrapped her arms around me without saying a word. We stood there for a long time, just holding each other. That evening, Jess sent one last text. "I'm sorry for everything. You won't hear from me again." And surprisingly, we didn't. She deleted all her social media accounts the next day. A mutual friend told me she'd moved back to Phoenix to live with her sister. Apparently, she'd had some kind of breakdown after our meeting and was finally getting the professional help she needed. The lawyer I'd consulted had prepared restraining order paperwork, but we never needed to file it. Jess was gone from our lives, hopefully for good this time. Alexis and I are expecting our first child in a few months. A little girl. Life is good, peaceful. I sometimes think about how differently things could have turned out. If I'd married Jess, I'd probably be miserable, constantly walking on eggshells, wondering who she was texting, drowning in debt from her spending habits. Instead, I'm with someone who values me for who I actually am, not what I can provide or how I make her look to others. Someone who faces problems with me as a team, rather than manipulating me into solving them. Someone who loves honestly without games or hidden agendas. Sometimes I think about how close I came to marrying Jess, and it's like thinking about a bullet I narrowly dodged. She wasn't just toxic, she was a fucking emotional vampire who would have drained me dry and moved on to the next victim. The funny thing is, I'm actually grateful for what happened. If she hadn't shown her true colors before we got married, I might have spent years in a miserable relationship, maybe even had children with her, making it that much harder to escape. And I never would have met Alexis, who showed me what a healthy relationship actually looks like. I still have the occasional nightmare about Jess. In the dream, I'm back in that apartment, sitting on the bed, staring at that text message. But when I wake up, Alexis is there beside me, and the relief I feel is indescribable. As for the $15,000 donation, I really did make it. Figured that money was long gone anyway, might as well do some good, with an equivalent amount. The shelter actually sent me a thank you letter detailing how they'd use the funds to help women escape abusive relationships and rebuild their lives. It felt like the perfect way to close that chapter of my life, turning something painful into something positive. So that's my story, the ex who crawled back and found out the hard way that some bridges once burned stay ash forever. I hope someone out there can learn from my experience.